OPEC shakes the U.S. Is the American oil industry on the brink of collapse? OPEC has just made a bold move that has sent shockwaves across the world. The U.S. oil industry could be facing an unprecedented crisis. Oil prices are fluctuating, production is being cut, and the global economy is feeling the pressure. The big question is, could this be the end of U.S. dominance in the energy sector? OPEC's bold move disrupts the global oil market. OPEC has made a decision that is shaking up the global oil market. They have chosen to cut oil production, driving prices up and putting the U.S. in a difficult position. But why did OPEC take this action? What does it mean for the global market? OPEC's strategy to control oil prices. For years, OPEC has played the role of a market leader, shaping oil prices by adjusting production levels. This latest cut is not just about supply and demand. It could be a strategic move to protect the interests of major oil-producing nations. Impact on the U.S. and the global economy. When oil prices rise, production and transportation costs increase, leading to higher prices for goods and worsening inflation. The U.S. economy will feel the impact as businesses and consumers struggle with higher fuel costs. Some experts warn that if OPEC continues to drive oil prices higher, a global economic recession could be looming. So, how will the U.S. respond to this challenge? The U.S. strikes back, boosting shale oil production. Under pressure from OPEC, the U.S. has no choice but to react. Their solution? Shale oil. But is this an effective strategy? The U.S. increases shale oil production. In December 2024, the U.S. reached a record high oil production of 13.49 million barrels per day. The U.S. government is pushing to reduce dependence on foreign oil by tapping into its massive shale oil reserves, but there are major obstacles. Shale oil is more expensive to extract. Compared to conventional oil, shale oil has a higher production cost. If oil prices drop, this sector could become unprofitable. Changing investment environment. Many major financial institutions are cutting back investments in fossil fuels, shifting toward clean energy. Environmental regulations tightening. The U.S. oil industry faces pressure from ESG, environmental, social, and governance standards, making it harder to secure funding. If OPEC continues to restrict supply and push prices higher, can the U.S. maintain shale oil production to compete? The rise of electrification. A major challenge for oil. OPEC is not the only challenge for oil producers. The electric vehicle revolution is adding even more pressure on the oil industry. The surge of electric vehicles. By 2025, global EV sales are expected to surpass 20 million units. Many countries are setting targets to phase out gasoline-powered cars in the near future. Government incentives and subsidies are pushing consumers toward EV adoption faster than ever. What does this mean for the oil industry? Declining gasoline demand could send oil prices downward. Major oil companies will have to restructure or find new strategies to survive. If shale oil production becomes unprofitable, the U.S. may have to rely more on renewable energy or imported fuel. But the problem doesn't stop there. The U.S. faces inflation and economic recession risks. The combination of high oil prices, production volatility, and the shift to clean energy is putting the U.S. economy in danger. High oil prices fuel inflation. Rising oil prices increase transportation, production, and electricity costs, making everything more expensive. The U.S. has been selling from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to stabilize prices, but this reserve is not limitless. Risk of economic recession. If oil prices keep rising, the Federal Reserve may have to raise interest rates to curb inflation, but higher interest rates could slow down investments, weaken economic growth, and trigger a recession. What will America do next? Don't take your eyes off the screen because the next revelations will surprise you. OPEC strikes back. Oil prices soar. How will Europe and Russia react? OPEC has made its move, and the world is shaken. In just a few weeks, oil prices have skyrocketed, markets are in turmoil, and the U.S. is facing a major challenge. Is this OPEC's official declaration of war on Washington? What exactly is happening? How will Europe and Russia respond? And most importantly, what options does the U.S. have to counter this? Let's dive in. OPEC strikes back. For years, the U.S. ramped up shale oil production, expanded LNG exports, and declared, "We don't need OPEC anymore." But OPEC wasn't going to let that happen. oil exporting nations decided to cut production, drive up prices, and strike a heavy blow against America's energy ambitions. Why? Because U.S. shale oil has been eating into OPEC's market share. Countries like India and Europe, once reliant on OPEC, are now turning to American oil. OPEC couldn't just stand by, and so they took action. The result? Soaring oil prices, a volatile global market, and an economic dilemma for the United States like never before. How will Europe and Russia react? It's not just the US. The whole world is feeling the pressure. Europe, already struggling with an energy crisis, now faces even higher oil prices. Countries like Germany and France are scrambling to break free from OPEC's grip. Some are betting on renewable energy, while others are rushing to secure long-term gas contracts with the US. But there's a big problem. None of these solutions work overnight. And what about Russia? This is a golden opportunity for Moscow to expand its influence. As Europe struggles, Russia is swiftly securing new partners in Asia, especially China and India. While the US and OPEC battle for dominance, Russia quietly signs the most profitable oil deals for itself. What does this mean? A major power shift in the global energy market is happening before our very eyes. What choices does the US have? So how will the US respond? Right now, Washington has two main options. 1. Negotiate with OPEC, convince OPEC to increase production and lower oil prices. But this is nearly impossible. Every OPEC nation has its own interests, and none want to give the US an advantage. 2. Ramp up domestic oil production. The US could increase drilling in places like Texas and offshore fields. But here's the catch. Producing more oil doesn't mean controlling the market. And there's another problem. Many US refineries are built for heavier crude oil, which mostly comes from OPEC nations. Switching to domestic oil would require billions of dollars and take years. So, what can the US do right now? Global impact. This oil war isn't just about politics or economics. It's hitting people's wallets hard. Gas prices are rising. Transportation costs are soaring. Food and goods are becoming more expensive. And if this situation drags on, the global economy could enter a serious period of instability. OPEC is playing a long game. While the US looks for short-term solutions, OPEC and Russia are planning for the next decade. The big question is, can the US turn the tide? Conclusion. The world is witnessing a high-stakes battle between energy superpowers. OPEC has asserted its dominance by tightening supply and driving up prices. Russia is taking advantage of the situation to expand its reach, while Europe scrambles for alternatives. And the US? It faces a tough choice. Double down on domestic production or negotiate with its toughest competitor. There are no easy answers. One wrong move could trigger global economic chaos, send prices skyrocketing, and place a heavy burden on millions of people worldwide. So, who will win this energy war? Can the US reclaim control, or will OPEC continue to dominate? And more importantly, how long will this battle last before the market stabilizes? In today's video, we will analyze a policy by Donald Trump that is causing a wave of discontent among those who have supported him. A recent decision to cut funding for healthcare and science is now forcing millions of voters to face serious consequences. These decisions are not only impacting people's jobs and lives, but are also having widespread effects on the healthcare and scientific sectors in the US. Let's dive deeper into the impacts of these changes. Donald Trump has recently signed an executive order cutting $9 billion from healthcare and scientific research funding by the US government. This means organizations like the National Institutes of Health, NIH, and CDC, which play a leading role in medical research, will have to make major cuts to their budgets. These funds were used to support research on cancer, Alzheimer's, and other critical health studies. The question arises, will those who voted for Trump, believing he would protect American healthcare, now feel betrayed? These decisions are not just affecting scientists, but they are creating long-term consequences for public health. What's even more concerning is that universities in red states, particularly public universities, will bear the brunt of these cuts. Large institutions like the University of Texas, the University of Alabama, and the University of Florida all rely heavily on NIH funding to maintain their research, hire staff, and train students. These cuts could result in these universities losing hundreds of millions of dollars each year, pushing them into a state of financial distress. As a result, cutting this funding not only harms medical research but also causes tuition hikes, putting graduate students and researchers at greater financial risk and potentially leading to job losses. Professors and scientists could lose their jobs, and research labs might have to shut down. This will have a significant impact on the education and science sectors in the US. With these changes, many Trump voters are now very disappointed. They feel betrayed by the very policies they hoped would improve their lives. One of the key reasons many voted for Trump was his promise to improve health care and the economy in red states. But now, his policies are hurting these very sectors, leaving millions of people worried about their jobs and the future of health care in the country. One Trump voter shared, "I voted for Trump, but now I don't understand why he's cutting funding for cancer research. This is going to set America back in the race for medical and scientific advancements." What's even more concerning is that while America is cutting its funding for scientific research, China and European countries are investing heavily in the healthcare and scientific sectors. China is building leading research centers in healthcare and technology. Countries like Germany and the UK are continuously increasing their investment in healthcare research, aiming to become the global leaders in science. If the US continues to cut funding for these fields, the country risks losing its dominance in these areas, ultimately falling behind China and Europe in the global race for medical and technological advancements. This could have long-term consequences for America's economy and global healthcare leadership. As we've seen, these new policies by Trump are having a major impact on healthcare, science, and education in America. Voters who once supported him are now losing trust and feeling betrayed by these decisions. If these policies continue, the US could face serious setbacks in many crucial sectors, affecting the future of healthcare, scientific research, and the economy of the country. To maintain its global leadership and protect the American people, the US needs to make the right decisions and invest properly in science and healthcare. If not, the country could lose the global leadership it has built over decades. We are witnessing something alarming. Donald Trump, once proud of his strong leadership, is now losing control. In recent press conferences, he forgot the name of the Secretary of Homeland Security, a clear sign of cognitive decline. At a time when the country needs clarity and vision, we are instead witnessing the unraveling of his leadership. If he cannot remember basic information, how can we trust him to lead the country through complex crises? Can we afford to let this continue? Under Trump, we have seen an alarming spike in air accidents, from mid-air collisions to catastrophic crashes. And what has he done to address it? Absolutely nothing. Worse yet, he has actively undermined the very agencies tasked with ensuring our safety. Trump's decision to slash budgets and cut crucial personnel from the FAA, the very agency responsible for overseeing our skies, was a dangerous gamble. This isn't just a matter of red tape or budget cuts. This is about human lives. People trust the FAA to ensure that their flights are safe. Yet, under Trump, that trust has been shattered. At a time when the nation is dealing with a spike in air crashes, the president has been too distracted, too self-absorbed in his own affairs. The result? Lives lost, families shattered, and a government that refuses to take responsibility. This cannot continue. How much more risk can America afford? How much more negligence? Trump's decisions, once bold and confident, now seem reckless and ill-considered. Take, for instance, his latest claim that he single-handedly saved New York from a vital traffic congestion program, a program that, in reality, was helping ease traffic and raise necessary funds for the city. But did Trump acknowledge its success? No. Instead, he unilaterally canceled it, dismissing the work of experts and disregarding the real-world impact on the people of New York. Now let's think about that for a moment. What does it say when the man at the helm makes decisions not based on facts, not based on what's best for the people, but on what best serves his self-image? This is not leadership, my friends. This is the making of chaos. If the president can treat successful policies as his personal playthings, how can we possibly expect stability in the rest of his administration? And the king, Trump himself, places a crown on his own head, as though he's leading a monarchy rather than the world's most powerful democracy. Is this the tone America should accept? Is this the kind of leader we want representing us on the world stage? While Trump spends his days golfing, his administration is dismantling the very structures that hold our country together. The IRS, the backbone of our nation's tax system, is cutting key personnel. jeopardizing the services on which millions of Americans depend. These are essential services, from Social Security to Medicaid, and now they're under threat. Imagine that. As the president plays golf, millions of people are left wondering, will their Social Security checks arrive? Will they be able to afford the health care they need? These aren't abstract concerns. These are the daily realities for everyday Americans. And yet, Trump's response? Silence. His cuts to government services, his disregard for the working class, and his obsession with self-promotion are creating a perfect storm. Instead of leading the country towards stability, he's further eroding the very systems that protect American families. We must ask, is this the future we want? A future where the leader of the free world is so out of touch that he cannot even address the most pressing concerns of his citizens? Donald Trump was once hailed as a force of nature, a leader who could do no wrong. But now, we are seeing a dangerous unraveling of that image. His leadership has become synonymous with chaos, a chaos that threatens the very fabric of American society. From his lack of control in public speeches to his reckless decisions that endanger public safety and well-being, America is at a crossroads. Can we afford to continue down this path? How much more can the nation take? The choice lies with us, as the American people, to demand accountability and to stand up for the future of this great nation. Amid an unprecedented energy crisis, the EU faces gas prices that have soared over 100% with unstable supplies. With Russian gas once making up nearly 40% of imports, the region is under pressure. Now, the US has imposed tariffs that add roughly 10% to the cost of Canada's natural gas, aiming to force Canada to shift its LNG exports to the EU. Is this bold move the key to resolving the crisis, or just a strategic play? As the EU faces an unprecedented crisis, with gas prices surging by over 100% and supplies disrupted, the situation has become extremely urgent. Political and economic motives. Leveraging its considerable economic and political clout, the US has opted to impose new tariffs on Canada's natural gas. Some estimates suggest these tariffs add roughly 10% to the final cost, putting pressure on Canada to shift its LNG exports to the EU, where demand is skyrocketing amid the energy crunch. Impact on the EU market. This imposition opens up opportunities for the EU to access an alternative energy source, thereby reducing its historical reliance on traditional supplies such as Russian gas and US LNG. This shift is seen as a crucial step in the ongoing strategy to diversify energy sources and enhance energy security across the region. International relations impact. Simultaneously, this move reaffirms the US's leverage in international trade policies, sparking renewed debates about the role and influence of tariff measures in reshaping the global economic order. In this increasingly tense environment, Canada has rapidly established itself as a strategic partner in the LNG sector, abundant reserves and political stability. With vast natural gas reserves and a stable political landscape, Canada offers a secure and sustainable energy source. LNG Canada Project, a strategic lever. The landmark LNG Canada project, backed by an estimated $40 billion investment, is expected to deliver up to 14 million tons per annum, MTPA, of LNG once fully operational. This initiative is projected to create thousands of jobs and significantly boost Canada's contribution to the global LNG supply. Geographical advantage. Canada's strategic location allows LNG to be easily transported across the Atlantic to the EU, while also opening up shipping routes to Asia via the Pacific. This flexibility enables Canada to establish diverse export channels, reducing risks associated with reliance on a single pathway. Historically, the U.S. reigned as the dominant force in the global LNG market, boasting massive production capacities and an extensive export network. However, recent shifts have eroded this advantage. Weakening of the U.S. LNG sector, domestic policy uncertainties, and the newly imposed tariff measures have reportedly reduced the competitiveness of U.S. LNG by an estimated 15% in key markets. The rise of Canada and Mexico. As the U.S. grapples with these challenges, Canada has seized the opportunity to solidify its market position. Furthermore, countries like Mexico are aggressively investing in their LNG infrastructure, with plans to expand their LNG production capacity by over 20% in the coming years, intensifying the competition. Competition on quality and cost. This fierce rivalry is pushing all LNG suppliers to innovate, optimize technology, and refine contract terms. The aim is to reduce shipping costs and enhance economic efficiency. ensuring that the energy needs of demanding markets are met. Long-term impact. The evolving competitive landscape is not only reshaping the current LNG market share, but also influencing long-term strategies for sustainable energy development, where flexibility and adaptability remain key to future success.